This conference will now be recorded.
The topic tonight is self-marketing for student athletes. This is the third of three seminars that Tom has put on. The first came back in October. That was about hockey and academics. The second, college hockey, took place in November. If you want to go back and watch either of the first two seminars, you can find them on the KIJHL website under the Education tab, Student Athlete Resources. You'll find YouTube links for both videos, and this video will be added to that page once Tom is completed tonight. So with that, make sure that everyone turns off their microphones and cameras until Tom's ready for questions, and we'll turn it over to him to begin.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we don't have a large group on tonight, but this is being recorded, as Jeff has said, and we will hopefully expose it to as many young people and for their families as feel that they need it. Many people in this day and age of family advisors and agents and things like this do take advantage of them and try and have a lot of people do a lot of this stuff for them. It is my philosophy that that's fine. Pull out all the stops if you want to get yourself known. However, I think that doing it for oneself or doing some of it is actually very empowering and can also tell the coaches, the scouts, a lot about who you are. As I've been saying in the previous two, character is going to be sometimes what carries the day. It's going to be the thing that makes the difference, and just that little added difference to seeing that you are a young person who doesn't wait for things to happen. You try and make things happen, can be a valuable impression that you leave on the people who are considering who's going to be in their programs. So Jeff says self-marketing. I like to say it, don't just sit there, do something. Okay. Well, like anything in life, if you want to achieve something, you want to purchase something, you want to win something, you want to accomplish something, it has obviously been well documented that if you set a firm goal, set some plans, and set some writing and plans into place to accomplish what you want, you have a far better chance of it happening. So if you want to make a team, what do you do? Well, you make a plan. If you want to get better marks, what do? Well, you have to make a plan, and sometimes that involves changing some things and setting yourself some higher, loftier goals. But anyways, if you want to achieve anything of value, you've got to know specifically what it is you want, and then put that in writing and set about making a plan. And it will be a better chance of you accomplishing that goal. You have to excuse me tonight. I have a bit of a cold, so I'll try and speak up, but my voice doesn't seem to want to allow it. Again, it's about life, and is life taking chances? Is life about chances? Would you leave all those things that you want to do, that special thing you want to accomplish, that job you want to get, that team you want to make? Do you leave all that to chances or into other people's opinion, or are you going to make a choice and do something about it yourself? And I think often our success and our failure in a lot of endeavors really is determined by how much do we really, really want to see that be successful, to see that accomplishment. And as I've referred to in my previous two from personal experience, I know that dreaming is very important, and it is the first step, if you want to call it, in the journey towards success, the journey towards accomplishing something, is to dream it. and you've got to follow your heart. But at some point, you need to be clear on what the goal is. You need to commit to that goal. You need to consider all the alternatives. You need to be open to new ideas. You develop some priorities that may change over time. Consider both short and long-term steps. What do you have to do today? What do you have to do this week? Also, what are you going to be doing this year? So there is both short and long-term steps, and then build a plan around those steps. Finally, put the plan into action. You do it. Do something. And as you go, you evaluate, revise the plan, and you carry forward. And as I said in our previous 2 seminars, the journey towards that goal, or towards that point of success, will bring many, many rewards. And some very unexpected ones. So why not step out of your comfort zone? Why not get involved? Why not be boots on the ground, actually doing something about it? Self-marketing is about all those things. It's about having a plan, about implementing the plan into action, putting your face out there, believing in yourself, building relationships, building the relationships with the scouts and the coaches who you want to be known by. These are the people who are going to be making decisions. Often those coaches, those scouts, are going to be doing that in reverse. They want to get to know the athlete. They'll send some information to him. They'll try and get some dialogue back and forth because they're in the process of building a relationship, so that when that athlete has to make a decision about their school or their team, it's very much high on his list because a relationship has developed there. But absolutely, it's not about getting discouraged, because like anything, and I think the old adage that in sales, it takes 100 calls to get 10 returned to possibly get 1 sale. So again, you just have to believe that it can make a difference. And absolutely, I can tell you, it will absolutely not harm your chances of getting into a school or having coaches notice you if you do something about it. It can only enhance your chances. Be open to new ideas. Be open to new directions. But you are controlling what you can control. I think often I have found that young athletes feel that the whole process of being selected to teams and possibly being noticed by the team at a higher level or getting into college, etc., everything is beyond their control. They don't feel like they have any power in the process. And I think this is a process in self-marketing that you can begin to feel empowered, begin to feel that it's your journey. So why not take more power to yourself? The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. There'll be many people who think, oh, I have my parents do that, or have my agent or my family advisor or the coaches. If they'll find me if they're interested in me. There are thousands of hockey players out there, all vying for the next opportunity. How are you going to get that little edge up? Now, I'm not suggesting that this self-marketing process is going to be the single thing that gets you a college scholarship or gets you the next level of team. But it is one thing that you can control along the way. And often, it can be one of the things that gets you noticed. It gets your name in the mix. Because here I am, player A, out in Revelstoke or in Salmon Arm or wherever I'm playing. How how is a team in the eastern United States going to even know that I exist? Again, they have scouts, they have people, great networks that work wonders sometimes. But again, that can be hit and miss. You do something about having your name noticed. Now, all of this self-marketing material I'll have up on the KI website within a couple of weeks. Basically, this is not proprietary. It's not a absolute, it's a secret formula, etc. It's just a process that I've added to over the years as I've seen young men and young women struggling a bit at first, but at times getting powered and doing some their own research and doing some of their own marketing, etc. And I've seen things that have worked and things that don't. And that's what I'll share with you today. And you can take from it what you want. You can do a little bit of it. You can do all of it. It's your choice. But I'm saying, I believe that it can enhance your opportunities in the whole process. I think the first thing, as I've been saying all the way along in all of our seminars, is do your own research. And that can start with making a list of schools that you want to contact. I've already laid out for you in previous seminars that there are many, many schools out there, and some of them may be unrealistic for you at this point in time. That's one of the things to make some decision on. Are you going to start by doing a blanket survey, so to speak, or a blanket research of all the programs out there? That's not bad to gather the names. At some point, you're going to want to break it down. But you want to first off be able to gather the names of the coaches, their emails, list of the schools. And with today's internet availability, that is not a very difficult process. College Hockey Incorporated is one excellent resource. You can have a list of all the teams and go through their process, and you can get all of the coaches, current coaches, because there are changes. College hockey doesn't tend to change its head coaches as often as, say, for some sports or professional sports, but they do change, and it is important that you get the up-to-date information. Do some research on the schools. Now, this is where I suggest, in fact, I was doing a seminar the other night for a group of young players around 13, 14 years of age. And obviously, when you were talking about self-marketing, that seems very premature. However, it's never premature to get information, because when you will make those decisions, you're going to refer to that information. You're going to have that information to make more informed decisions. So however you like to operate, whether it's doing electronically in computers and laying out a spreadsheet, or like me, an old timer, you put together a duotang or a binder of some kind, however, whatever works for you, but something that you can hold on to for several years. It could be your Bible, a booklet of research that you've done on schools and programs and coaches that are out there, so you know, not just so you know who you've contacted, etc., but you know something about that program, because that's going to be very critical in the decision-making process. As I've said, 60 plus NCAA Division I schools, 83 plus Division III NCAA schools, 35 Canadian youth sport, 7 Alberta colleges, 4 BC intercollegiate schools, and 450 club programs across the United States. It's a lot of programs. However, also there's a lot of athletes competing for those programs. So it's competitive, that's for sure. So be inclusive. At a young age, don't be discounting too many programs. Often I will see young people, particularly as they get into junior hockey, where it's the NCAA or nothing, and everything else is, fallback. I understand that. The NCAA has a bit of a mystique, and there is more money at that level to offer for scholarships and many of the bells and whistles that may attract some players. However, I suggest that those things will become less and less important as you get closer to a decision. And be inclusive, but also be realistic. If you're sitting in about a C+ average, and you maybe can achieve a B, etc., I would say that an Ivy League opportunity is not probably in the works unless some major changes happen in the next few years, in whatever age you are. But if you've already graduated and those are your marks, no use focusing on some of those schools, because they require marks, etc., that you don't have. So again, be inclusive, but be realistic, and do your research. So as you carry on doing in this process, that first step may be a whole year spent just researching programs, and that would be a valuable step at any age, but certainly at a young age, etc., having that information. I've done this process with so many athletes, and I've seen, athletes who are 20 and just about finished junior hockey, and they're in a bit of a panic. They start doing it. It's never too late. But absolutely, if they had started that back when they were still in high school and started to gather that information, so that when the time comes, they're pretty knowledgeable about what they want and what's available to them. And then, those opportunities are, it's an easier process, so to speak. So step 2 may not be a few weeks down the road. It may not be a few months down the road. It may be a year or 2 down the road. But at some point, you're going to have gathered all this information about schools, etc., and you have an initial list that you want to explore. Second step is to draft a short introductory email to send to coaches. Now, coaches do get a lot of emails and letters and correspondence, etc., so they don't have the time to sort through some initial ones from somebody they don't know. Make it short. Again, I'll have on the website some samples of what I would consider a decent introductory email, something that is 3 or 4 sentences long. Dear Coach, my name is Tom McEvay, and I play for the Coquitlam Express in the BC Junior Hockey League. I'm a centerman, and I'm 18 years of age. And then something about your schooling, maybe a sentence saying, my schooling has always been important to me, and now I'm starting to get interested in what schools and colleges, and your school has piqued my interest. And I'm about a B average student, and I'd love to send my rest of my information to you. That may be, you said a little bit about yourself, where you are playing, your interest in their team, your high school GPA or SAT score if you have one, just enough, a little bit of information, and then ask them or tell them that you're going to be following up in the next few weeks by sending them more of a complete package. You're not asking them because, again, you plan to send it, so you don't want to ask them, because that would possibly lead to a no. And when you're in sales, you don't want to ask anything that's going to lead you to a no. So you send them, you then start putting together that package. But again, that could be your final sentence, say that I will proceed to put this together and get it to you within the next few weeks. Very important. Once you have sent out an introductory email, do not take very long to get the next step sent. If you say that you're going to have something sent to them within, a week or 2, get it to them within a week or 2. So don't send, 30, 40 introductory emails out and then you're scrambling to try and get all the packages together and send them out. Try and spread it over time. It's not a race. It's a marathon, or it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Especially if you started this process early, like I recommend. Ask them if their email that I've sent the initial introductory email to is the correct one, or if they prefer that they send it to a different person. I usually will communicate initially maybe with the head coach, and usually then the assistant coaches are involved in the recruiting, and they may suggest, thank you very much, you can further correspondence sent to blah, blah, blah. Hopefully they will respond, but again, don't necessarily expect it with every email that's sent out. And then you've started the process. You've got it going. That's what you've done already is probably more than about 80% or 90% of all junior hockey players out there. You've started to self-market yourself, and start to get your name out there. And you can take some confidence in that process that you're already ahead of the group, okay? It's not a race, it's not a contest, but it is ultimately who are coaches going to be looking at, who are coaches going to select. And the more that they've got somebody's name in front of them, the more times that name may come to their mind. Don't expect, as I say, too many emails or too many replies to the initial email. Do not get discouraged if you don't have any. If you do get a reply, however, make sure that you respond very quickly to that. If they send you a form to fill out, thank them. If they send you that they're not involved in recruiting right now, but they will at a later date, say thank you very much, I'll keep in touch, etc. Everything at this stage is all positive. Always be positive. Don't burn any bridges. Don't say, well, I wasn't interested in your school anyways. Because you never know that the person you were communicating now with at school A later might be at school B or C that you happen to be very interested in. So again, don't leave a positive impression. Don't leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth. Things change. And again, you don't have to be writing all this, frantically trying to write all this down. All of this I will also share on the website. There's a young man who I had the pleasure of working with for a couple of years in his junior career in Alberni, Connor Varley. And Connor was not only a student of the game and a hardworking athlete, he was also a hardworking student. And he took to the idea of self-marketing, something that he felt he could do and he could benefit from. So, and eventually it was part of a whole process that landed him at Penn State and to a very successful NCAA career and on to quite a few years of pro hockey in North America and in Europe. So you've got your package together. Your package could include a cover letter. It should include a cover letter. That could be an email that's in letter format, or it could be an email or a letter as an attachment, whichever seems the most appropriate. Often I will find that the email could be the actual cover letter, only because it gives less things that to click on to get the attachment. So, that could be debated all around, but however you decide to have a cover letter, usually the cover letter absolutely, hopefully up to one page. If it's into 2 pages, again, it's giving them an awful lot of stuff that they've got to cover, and you haven't whet their appetite a lot. So that whether or not they'll bother to read a 2-page or 3-page letter, I would say it's more likely that something that is short, covering, their character, something about their hockey, something about their schooling, 3-4 paragraphs would be good. and I'll again have some samples on the website. A profile hockey resume, and this is again something that I will have samples, but over the years in junior teams that I've worked with, we've tried many different formats, and one that was fairly successful I'll share with you in just a minute. This is when you would share your high school transcripts from grade 9 to 12, and if you're in grade 10 or 11 at this point, or grade 12, you up to that, and then obviously if you have written the SAT or ACT, if you're younger, probably hasn't happened, and obviously this last couple of years, SATs have been deferred for a couple of years, assuming that they will be back in action by next year. Having the SAT, not the whole report, just again the highlights of your marks in each of the areas, your overall mark, etc. Ask them if maybe they would like to receive any letters of reference from coaches. You can decide on that. It's sometimes not valuable to ask, but you're likely or not, you're going to send that down the road to some of the coaches that you're most interested in. And again, asking them about wanting to see game video. Big thing is that not all the Division 1, and certainly not the Division 3, and all the Canadian schools have the resources to do in-person scouting. So they rely a lot on referrals as to who the better players are, who the players who should be watching. That's why they could rely also on people who self-market to get their names out there. But they don't want to see highlight reels. It seems to be one of the misconceptions out there. I've seen it quite a few times. Some advisors and people have recommended you send them highlight videos. These coaches are intelligent people. They've gone through this process an awful lot. They know that a highlight reel does not show them the whole picture that they want to see. They want to see a whole game, just as if they were sitting there and watching. They want to see players in all ends of the ice. They want to see how they're, how they're conducting themselves on the bench, everything. The whole picture, defensively, offensively, checking, body checking, etc. They want to see the whole picture. So highlight reels are nothing more than fluff, as I like to refer to them. Your cover letter, again, as I said, trying to keep it to one page, personalized for the coach and the school. Now, I think this is really important. If you're sending out a few back to back, be sure to change the information, or at least the headings in there of who you're sending to and the school you're sending to. Nothing will result in something negative by having the wrong coach or the wrong school, etc. So that's why I don't suggest you having 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, 12, 20 schools if you're sending out all in a few nights, because I think it's not as useful, and it can have more chance that things could get messed up. So again, over a period of time, sending this information out, making sure you personalize it so it's not just dear coach or to whom it may concern. You actually are writing to Coach Jones at Clarkson University, etc. Okay, that's very important. And as I've said, some information on your hockey background, some information on your educational background, your character traits. Those are the 3 key areas that I think you need to focus on, because they're often the character trait ones, maybe even more important. The type of person that you are, obviously they're going to have to do more research than just whatever you tell them, but at least it plants the seed that, okay, and just the fact that you're doing this process is critical. And it leaves them with a feeling that, yeah, he's a pretty well organized, dedicated, confident individual, and maybe worth us to take a look at. Make sure it's well read. Make sure that you have somebody who you trust, etc., could possibly edit for you, because, or at least if you do the editing, make sure that you take your time, check it over, because you're trying to impress the recipients. You're trying to show them you're well organized. You're trying to show them that you care. And if it's something to slap together and has full of mistakes, etc., you're not going to get that result at all. And the resume, again, or profile, try to keep it to one page. Again, you can include, I think it's valuable to include a picture, and some information about your personal and your hockey demographics, a clear contact for you and your parents, your education statistics, a short biography, very short, point form, bullet form of the last few years, highlights, etc. The highlights of your grade 9 to 10, 9 to 12 transcripts, and any contacts or references. I think I have a sample here right now to show you. This is one from the Alberni Valley Bulldogs, Ryan Steele, who's currently playing in the NCAA. Ryan was a young man who, when he came to us, was very open to the idea of self-marketing, and was very thankful that we helped him while he was on our team in putting together this hockey profile. That's one page, and all the pertinent demographic information you'd need, contact information for him and his parents, emails, phone numbers, the address, etc. So that is very critical. There's the obligatory shirt and tie picture up in the corner. It's up to you whether it's your shirt and tie picture, just happened to be the pictures we had taken for the team that year. And it's a good picture where you can actually see the individual. And then again, that background or biography of the last few years of where he played and how he's done up until his time with us. If he has applied to the NCAA already, he's very much aware of that process, has his number there, his SAT score, his grade point average, all very easy to access, are easy to see and get to. And then his academic results from grades 9, and you're not showing all the non-academic elective courses, etc., that you've taken. Primarily, obviously, the academic courses that you're using for your GPA, for the NCAA worksheet that you may be working on from grades 9 to 12. And again, if they have, show your percentage and also the mark of the letter grade. And then if you happen to be a student who has been out of high school, etc., you can put a little note below. You can take, for example, you're taking a first-year course at a local college, etc. And then the contacts below for that team. You can expand those contacts, etc., or you could expand that later in other information and correspondence that you share with these team. But in one page, you get a lot of information there and something that they can refer to fairly quickly. Again, you're going to monitor as you get replies, recording in your binder or in your notebook, on your paper you're working from, your website or your spreadsheet, etc. Record the replies, and again, please remember, reply shortly after, within days of them sending you anything, to show that you are the type of person who's genuinely interested and that you know that they've taken the time, even if it's only to send you a form letter, but they've taken the time to acknowledge that you exist, to acknowledge that they've got something from you. Please do the same. Ask coaches. This is when you would start preparing for other steps along the way. Ask for coaches, past and present, to prepare a letter of reference for you. Don't ask them to send it on to anybody at this stage yet. In fact, if they can send it to you, that's fine. You can hold on to them. But gathering them all before they're needed can be very, very astute, because once the school says, well, send us some reference letters, or have a coach send them. If you then say to a coach, oh, could you send please that reference letter, even if they've sent it to you, you can send it back to them, or surely they'd still have a copy. They can then send that forward, but not having to ask them under duress, a few days notice, etc. Again, you've done the prior work, you've done the research, and you've gathered this information. Also, most teams now have game tape readily available. You can ask whoever is responsible for that in your program to make sure that they earmark a couple for you. I mean, usually at this stage in development of the game, they've got some archives of all the games. Again, obviously you're going to pick one of your better games. Again, having it available so that there isn't a time lag when you say you're going to send it. Okay, so if a coach in the process asks for something, that's not going to take you several weeks to get it to them. You already have alerted people to the fact that you're getting ready, sending out some things to teams and to coaches, and if you have some available, and sometimes it's just a matter of having the link that they have the game tape. That could be a link to YouTube or to some other provider where they could go to and then have access to the game tape. Again, as they ask, you can send out information, but also just keeping in touch. So maybe this is now a year or 2 or 3 even down the road. You've sent out all your initial stuff, a year ago or months ago, etc. Now you maybe have some additional stuff. You maybe have one of these coaches letters you could send. You have this link to some game tape. Maybe you've got updated your SAT or ACT scores. You've written again, send them the updated score. Perhaps you were only in grade 11 when you applied. You sent them the original material, could send them now your final high school transcripts or upgraded marks. You could send them college courses marks. So again, reasons that you have, legitimate reasons for getting back in touch with them. Dear coach, I thought I'd just touch base. I haven't having a successful season, and I've got some information here. I'll send you along. Sometimes it could be accomplishments or achievements or a media, something in the media that highlighted what you were doing. So these are all reasons, and I'm not saying you send them all at once. Again, the idea is that you spread things out so that every few months this team is getting some information from you, and that I tell you that piques their interest, even if there's oh no, that guy who's sending me that information from Nanaimo again, etc. But again, it's showing perseverance, it's showing organization, saying something about your character that you want them to know. Absolutely, if you are doing your research about their school, a little note to say, I've noticed that your school, that the university team that they coach is doing very, very well, etc. Or they in the standings, or a particular game where they beat one of the top ranked schools. Show them that you are really interested in their school. Show them that you've done the research. That goes a long way. Continuing to monitor, again, any replies, and anytime you've sent this information out, write it down in your book, write it on your spreadsheet, etc. I've sent game tape, sent another, sent my updated transcripts or whatever, so that you can always go back and get that information. Oh God, what did I send to Team X? Okay, oh yeah, I see right here in my book, I've got all of what I've sent, when I've sent it, and I've got any time that they've replied to me. And if some school has now shown interest in you that you didn't have on your list, perhaps at one of your games there was a scout there, etc., and he's mentioned to your coach that he liked your play for that game or whatever, even if he doesn't talk to you, if he's mentioned it to your coach and your coach has told you, absolutely add them to the book. Add them to the book. Or If you have very little or no interest, don't add them to the book. But if you're still at the stage of gathering schools and gathering all this information, chances are you'll want to add schools and delete some if you know that, let's say a school just is out of your reach academically, and now you know the information about their requirements, etc. You would probably not qualify. Okay, take that school off. So you add and delete as you're going forward, and you're continuing to send additional information as it is available. And remembering not to get discouraged. Your dream doesn't have an expiry date. Take a deep breath, try again, and you'll be amazed just how it can make you feel like, okay, I'm doing something. I'm getting myself out there. I'm not leaving everything to chance. Probably by this time, you might start to want to narrow the list down. Possibly you've been working on this for a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 1. But again, I think however long it's been, it's better that is not condensed into a very narrow window, because you can plan it accordingly. At one point, though, you will have to start narrowing the list down more than you probably already have. Perhaps you've narrowed it down to 5 or 6 schools that you've sent a lot of information to, have shown some interest in you, there's been some correspondence back and forth. Perhaps at a certain stage, and I'm, step 8 maybe further down the line, but you're going to be at some point asking your current coach, who at that time likely is your junior hockey coach, your junior A coach, to make some calls. Remember that coaches don't have a lot of time, but they absolutely will help you if you help them. So walking into your coach's office and saying, hey, coach, I'd like you to help me to get a scholarship. Well, they know that's probably the case with all our players, and if it's so wide open, etc. I mean, you do a lot of the work for them. Okay, so you've narrowed down your list. You're not getting to send out a blank or blank forms to a bunch of schools, etc. You're specifically asking to send 3 or 4 schools, phone calls to those schools, just to follow up to show that yes, you are the real deal. Hopefully they're going to be telling these schools, etc., that everything you've been sharing with them is legitimate, that absolutely you are that type of player, and it obviously then lends a lot of credibility. Your coaches, the people who work with you, are going to play a heavy part in this whole process, but make it easy for them. Work with them. Don't expect them to just do it for you. If you do that and you ask their coaches to make some calls for you, get back to your coach within a few days or a week to ask them if they've had any results from the calls, any follow-ups. And then again, you follow up by sending some information to the school saying, say it's Notre Dame, I've just sent some material to, and that coach has followed up, etc. An email to the Notre Dame coach saying, I understand that my coach spoke to you the other day. Appreciate that you've been communicating with me through this process. Is there any more information I could send you? Do you need more game tape? Whatever. Again, make their jobs as easy as possible, because they're going to make some decisions, and you want your name near the top of the list when they have to make some of those decisions. Often, I think by the time we get to this stage, it might be in your last year, etc. But recognizing that some players may go sooner in the process. I mean, I haven't said much today, but the average individuals going on to the NCAA are 19, 20, or 21 years old. The average age in the NCAA and in CIS or U Sport is 22 or 23 years old. So they are, it is an older sport. Those players are more mature when they've got there. So again, when you're narrowing down this list, it may be when you're 19 or 20, etc., and you've done all these things throughout your high school years and into your first 2 or 3 years of junior hockey, and now again you haven't been one of those superstars that, school is picked up at a fairly young age. Don't get bummed out about that. Don't, because again, just because a player has committed to a school doesn't mean that everything's going to go hunky dory and he's going to follow through and attend that school. That often doesn't happen. So, but narrow them down based upon the things that I think are going to be important to you. Obviously, they're relevant educational programs and the quality of those programs. If they have really good science program and that's what you're going into, you do your research on that, what the quality of the programs, find out which of the schools you'd go to for that area. Obviously, you play hockey at their school, they're hockey related variables. Who are the coaches, their philosophies, what does their recruiting look like at their school? You have to know how many freshmen are they planning to take in next year or the year after, etc. Where you would be in the pecking order of a team prior to going to it. I mean, going into a team that has all NHL drafted players and has only a few rookies, etc., may not be the best thing. It could be, but you want to do your research about that, because I've seen many young men whose hockey dreams have been dashed when they arrive at a school and they're on about the 5th or 6th line, because remember, most schools carry 28 or 30, 32 players on their roster and they're only going to be dressing 18 or 20. So again, it could be a while before a young player gets into the lineup. However, I've had many who also have done their research and have seen, look, I think I can be on the 3rd and 4th line my first year and probably get some valuable time. So it all will depend on what you were looking for. But I think most people are going to looking for an opportunity and chances to play. Look at the financial opportunities that are available and the realities. That's very important, as I've covered in our first 2 seminars. And I mean, again, it can range from $60,000, $70,000 a year American to $15,000 to $20,000 Canadian a year. So there's a huge difference, and those realities have to be considered. So again, make sure you've got them down. Make sure you've written them in your book, what it's going to cost to go to a school like that. And unless they give me a scholarship in this range, etc., unless I can garner some other financial aid, etc., that school is not going to be within my wheelhouse. That is not something my parents and I could afford. So again, be realistic. Look at where the location and size of the school. I've said it again several times, but do you want to go to a school in a city, or you want to be a school in a rural area? What size of school? What location? Do you want to have it some proximity to services and other things, or do you want to be relatively isolated at a school and have it be a real encompassing experience for you at that particular school? So there are many different factors about life experiences that you could have at each school that will determine whether or not you're going to enjoy yourself. And I can show you, if you're very interested, even to create a rubric that can show a numerical score, not a score that says that you're saying to yourself, well, that's the school I'm going to go to, but all of a sudden you start seeing things, well, these schools are kind of come out in front because they cover more of the important variables. Maybe a lot of kids are making a decision only based on some hockey variables and not considering some of those other things, and I think that's a real mistake. When you get to later in the game, when maybe you're talking to schools and you're having some dialogue with the coaches on a regular basis, possibly you're doing a fly down to look at the school, etc., you're going to want to know what to ask. And here, I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to let it be known I'm going to be having this published on our website, the KIJHL website. And these are some of the questions that you could ask. Obviously, you're not going to ask all of them, there's about 40 of them, but there may be half a dozen here that are going to be really critical to you, that you're going to want to make sure either you've asked on the phone, by email, or in person when you visit a school. And again, it says I am going to publish this, so you don't have to worry about trying to write everyone down. And I mentioned, visiting the schools, if at all possible, before you make a final decision about what you're going to do and where you're going to go. I think if at all possible, hopefully at the school's expense, the school will send you down or take you down and do a 2 or 3 day tour of the school to see what it's all about, etc. Possibly they don't have the funds for that, etc. Possibly this is something that you and your dad could do on a spring break or holiday or in the summertime, etc. So again, do your research ahead of time, so you have many of the answers before it's late in the game. And remember again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Doesn't matter if you go slowly as long as you don't stop. As I've said, at some point you're going to have to make your decisions. If you can do it without visiting the school, please go out and visit the school. Don't visit schools though if you don't have an interest or intention, particularly if it's their school who's going to be paying for it. Make good use of your time on your visit. Don't just go down and come home and the coach says, your coach says, well, how did you go? And so, oh, really good. And, I went out with the guys and we did this and that. You don't have any information more than we had about the school and the coach and what the players are like and what the routine is like and all the things that are going to be important to you when you make that decision. Talk to players, talk to other students. That's very important. You can do that without going down. You can send notes, make phone calls to people. I can provide you with some of the ones who have several of the schools. A lot of people can as well. But remember, it is when you are on one of those fly down visits that a school may make an offer or have the timeline laid out for you to make a decision. So again, be prepared for that. Once you make your decision, take a realistic look at yourself and the opportunities. Be honest and upfront with schools. The school that has what school has the best fit academically? What hockey factors need to be considered? What are the real costs? Is it affordable for you and your family? What are the lifestyle considerations? All the things that I've talked about are critical to whether or not the whole experience of being a student athlete at their school is going to work for you. Ask for advice. It's your decision. Absolutely. Get as many different takes on things as you can. Say, visit the schools if you can. Maybe take a clinical look at the decision. Maybe set up some type of score system. Always fall back on what your heart telling you. Does it really feel right? Once you make that decision, you start the admission process. And here's a young lady who I had worked with for many years from Port Alberni, who made a decision and a process to try for Harvard and landed at Harvard. This is after making her final decision and signing her commitment. So what are you prepared to do for yourself? When nothing is sure, everything is possible. I hope it's been valuable today. Again, it's not a template. It's not a guarantee for success. It's just improving the chances and giving yourself another step, another advantage over the people who are not doing it. So that is so important. So if you are serious about, I want to do this, I can't see how you wouldn't be interested in possibly following some type of self-marketing plan for yourself. Again, I'm always available. You can check out things on the website, how to contact me. These are some contacts. Absolutely, I'm available to help people with the process. And as the coaches and others in the KIJHL become familiar with these suggestions, etc., we'll have more people who will be available to help. Always worthwhile. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck.